Hello, everybody. All right. I was just wondering. I watched the video. I think you put out yesterday, the one that was only like 30 seconds or so.
There was one that was about a minute and a half, somewhere between a minute and a half and 2 minutes.
Yeah. And I noticed that your background looked a little different. I thought maybe you'd moved already or something like that.
Oh no, I'm just taking down the shelves and all that.
Yeah. Actually, even from yesterday, it looked different. So you're getting all packed up and everything, huh?
Yeah, getting everything torn down and all that. Throwing stuff out, giving stuff, selling stuff, giving stuff away.
Yeah. Um.
Probably by Tuesday, there's not going to be much in here, if anything.
Yeah. And you're still there for a couple now. We're still on for this Friday, right?
Yeah, for this Friday, we're still on, and I can't say for sure for November.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that more on Friday, like after the show on Friday. Um. Well, actually, in all reality, there's only one day in. There's only one open day left in November, anyway. So
When's
17th,
that?
the 17th, because I already have RJ scheduled for the third. Um, Metal's tentatively scheduled for the 10th, depending upon his situation. Hey, Shadowhawk. I know I sent you
Yeah.
the link via Facebook, so if you want to try to pop in here and be part of the conversation, feel free to do so.
Yeah, hopefully his internet's working.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky that Tim was able to step in for him on Friday there to finish out the show. So,
Yeah. And hello,
uh,
Shadowhawk.
so, anyways, we're just kind of settling in, giving people a chance to come in and all that before we get started. And I thank you guys in advance. For those who haven't already, for those who have, thank you for doing that. For those who haven't yet, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more, friendly people who wish to engage here. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talked about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. And for those who I've sent links to, feel free to join us in the studio here if you'd
Yeah.
like to, be part of the conversation and all that. So,
Yeah. What I'll probably do is I'll probably take the 17th, and then I should be able to know by the 12th November whether I'll be able to do that Friday. So I'll be able to let you know, 4 or 5 days in advance if you need to get somebody.
all right. Yeah. Well, what I can do too is maybe I can theoretically schedule two of you. Then that maybe like maybe I'll schedule you and see if you guys want to come in together. If
Yeah.
it end up that way, you and Tim coming in.
Tim, or maybe I can get Chris to come in
Yeah.
by
Um,
himself.
we don't have the same issue we had the last time. Yeah, I mean, I would love to have Chris and Diana back in the rotation all together,
Yeah.
Um, but I can't even get them to come onto the panel show on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, and here, if anything, it's a little loose. It's a look slightly looser here than on the Friday show. Yeah, where we have a bit more of a structure because we're actually focusing on something. But here, it's just getting together, hanging out, and just talking whatever the latest news is, or you know, I mean, basically, I've got a few ideas. I've got a couple of offhand ideas, and then of course, I think one of the other things we'll probably go over is at least one of the articles, because I don't know if you had heard. Um, so Eric July is being sued by Good Shepherd Ministries
Yeah,
over
I
one.
heard that.
I covered the first article the other day, and then of course he did have a response, so we'll probably go over that a little later. I've got a
Yeah, I
couple
think I've
other.
seen the response. That's like about a month old, isn't it? That information.
Well, I think what the article the other day said that they are okay. So they've been talking about it for the past month or so. Initially, what I think happened is some people who were trying to find a way to cancel Eric. Okay,
Yeah,
some people were trying to find a way to cancel him. Um, kind of let Good Shepherd Ministries know that, hey, look, this guy. How do you feel about this guy using the ISOM name? Because apparently,
yeah. Their acronym, the acronym for their
International School of Ministry.
yeah, for their ministry happens to be the same. It's like, oh,
Right.
geez.
But anyways, I don't want to get too deep into. But anyway,
Yeah,
so they were supposedly in negotiations, trying to find some kind of settlement, and then Good Shepherd has finally decided to just well, we can't come to a resolution, so we're just gonna take you to court. So we'll go over that article. We'll go over July's response a little
yeah,
later. Once maybe middle. There are a couple other things I want to also kind of talk about that just not necessarily. Well, one of them is not necessarily a news item, but it's something worth kind of talking about, and I'll get into that in a few minutes here. Just again,
yeah,
want to give people a chance to get in
yeah,
and let me now, if Rick, if you want to help out by maybe sending the StreamYard link to, like, let's say Chris, Diane, yeah, like some of them who are on X or whatever, I give you permission to do that. I mean, who's more or less welcome. I send the links to them via Facebook. If you want to send them, if you want to resend the links to them on Twitter, like the Tomoloviches, Terry, I think who's welcome, who's not. So, um,
yeah,
so you can. So I'm gonna kind of send. What I'm gonna do is send the YouTube link to some of my followers on um on Facebook on Facebook who I think might be interested in. All right, yeah, all right. Yeah, so I figured something out last week too, in terms of like how I'm gonna start setting up, this weekend in each history. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go either or day until I get two of them. So I'll get two for one day, and then once I get two for one day, then I'll focus on the other day for the like. Well, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about tonight. To balance things out a bit better than I had been doing. So, but anyways, so I just went over to the Facebook, the YouTube, and now it's on here. So have a good night, fellas. Gotta go. Oh, that kind of sucked. I was hoping he would have, because he did come in for first part of the show. Would have liked to have him share his thoughts on what we read on Friday. But anyways, are you sharing the StreamYard link to some of the guys on X? What happened? What happened there? Okay, what happened to Rick now? Apparently, I hope he's not having some issues as well. We'll have to wait and see. Wait till see if when he comes back. Hmm. Hmm. You coming back? Hmm. Yeah. So. All right. Well, we're just waiting on some more people to come in, show up. What have you? You wanna come by? Oh, that. What happened?
My net went out. My Wi-Fi thing that connects to my router just decided to not work for a little bit, for a second.
Oh.
So, and I had trouble getting it back on. But as you can see, I got it back on.
Well, that's good. I mean, I would have hated trying to do the show by myself here. I know we're still waiting on metal, and
Yeah, but it's like quarter after at this point, or close to quarter after, a minute away, less than a minute away. So we might want to,
just get going.
yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right here. We're coming up on 15 minutes. All right, so I'll go over first off a couple other things before we get into the other. We'll probably get into another topic a little later. But one of the first things, of course. So yesterday I was watching Popeye and Pals on MeTV. Now I recorded because we had the Direct TV stream. We had the East Coast feed from MeTV. So when Popeye and Pals on Saturday morning comes on, it comes on at 4 a.m. my time.
Ooh,
So,
nice. Not.
so I recorded to watch later in the day, obviously. So at one point in the middle of the show, of course, when you record it, you can like fast forward through the commercials and all that, which is what I did. there was a disclaimer that they put up before one of the cartoons. Typical disclaimer. About you know this. At the time this cartoon was released, there were certain prejudices that were
Yeah,
considered.
blah blah blah. Yeah, I get
That
it.
kind of thing. So when the cartoon comes on, the cartoon in question, of course, was Service with a Guile. It was a Popeye cartoon, obviously. As it went, you had Olive Oil, who was running a service station. The cartoon was released in 1946, right?
Yeah.
So the so an admiral comes in, and I guess it's a Chevrolet Coach. I guess is what the car looked like. I don't know
Cars. Neither do I. So.
But an admiral comes in a golden, what looks like Chevrolet Coach. The only reason I know it's a Coach is because I just earlier today watched a couple of cartoons that were made by Chevrolet promoting a Coach, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he comes in, asks Olive to fill up the tire. So as she's trying to stretch the air hose to his car, Popeye and Bluto come to see her with saying they have 1 day pass. They each want to take her rowing, and she kind of points out, "Well, I can't go. Gotta take care of this. This tire, blow this tire up." And so, in their own way, they try to help her.
And hijinks ensue.
Yeah, hijinks ensued. They end up just completely destroying the car. And then toward the end of the cartoon, Popeye eats the spinach, fixes the car, and all that. And then Bluto kind of bumps him out of the way to open the door for the Admiral when the Admiral returns. The Admiral starts the car and starts to go off. The car falls apart.
Oh.
And then Bluto gets punished. Now, of course, the story in of itself is not why I brought this cartoon up. It was, they put this disclaimer on it. I'm sitting there watching the cartoon, right? I'm watching this cartoon.
Trying to figure out what's
supposedly why they felt the need of the disclaimer. I have actually, the only thing I could possibly think of is the whole thing, with the boys trying to impress Olive Oil, the whole tradition, trying to impress Olive Oil to get them to go with them. Okay,
yeah.
if that's why they put the disclaimer up, then you have to do that with all.
Or they the thing is probably nowadays is probably just anything from that day and age. It automatically gets the disclaimer whether it needs it or not.
But the two, okay, so Popeye and Pals is a half-hour cartoon. So they had three cartoons in that time slot. Okay, in that space of time. They had that one I just mentioned, and then two of the older Fleischer. That one was a famous studio production. So they had the two. They on either end of that was the middle of the three cartoons. They started off with the very first Popeye the Sailor cartoon, Popeye the Sailor, which of course was not a Popeye cartoon per se; it was a Betty Boop cartoon. Which was just before the Hays Code was fully enacted. And then the one after that cartoon was The Man on the Flying Trapeze, which featured Nana Oil, Olive Oil's mother, in her only animated appearance. Okay. Like the thing for me is that I'm scratching my head. And I looked on IMDb. I even looked at the Wikipedia page for it. I absolutely could not find any notation or any reason why that cartoon in particular would need. Now they said Warner Brothers. I guess it's one of the cartoons that Warner Brothers, I guess, has or whatever, or that they were showing. But there's nothing in there that I could see in watching that cartoon
Yeah. Well,
That
like I said,
it seems to me, oh, this is like when they put up a disclaimer like that, I'm thinking like it's something like, okay, maybe they had an issue of blackface, which was again not the case. I don't actually think for that
yeah,
for the most part. I think for the most part, all of the Popeye characters were all Caucasian, so nothing like any kind of racial. Okay,
yeah.
there were
Well,
some wartime cartoons that may have had that, like Your Sap, Mr. Jap. You know,
yeah,
that one obviously had some stereotypes of
yeah.
Japanese in
Well,
it.
the closest, some sort of stereotype about women, possibly. But like I said, for that disclaimer, did they do it for the whole thing or just
Well, it
that
seemed that the
individual?
disclaimer came up right before that particular cartoon. They didn't. They
Okay.
didn't start it. That's the first time I've ever seen a disclaimer put on a Popeye cartoon like that. You know, now granted, like for example, Your Sap, Mr. Jap, you can find that one on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a number of videos called like banned cartoons that you can find. That's one of those you can find on the Your Sap, Mr. Jap. But this one, Service with a Guile, really, outside of the wartime cartoons, I don't think there was anything in Popeye that could have warranted such a disclaimer. The wartime cartoons, maybe I can understand that,
Yeah.
but on the same, when you put it
Well,
into its proper historical context, people
yeah.
shouldn't be overly offended by it because it was a reflection of the times. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
no,
well,
obviously, anybody looking back on those cartoons today, unless you happen to be somebody who just wants to take offense to anything and everything, you know.
yeah. Well,
Um,
somehow, although maybe you didn't get it for the first one in the recording, maybe it came on just before um, you start recording. I don't know why it wouldn't have come on for the last one. Again, maybe you missed it in the recording. Well, you get
well,
you
no,
said
because okay, if you're trying to say that they would have put it up for every single cartoon, it didn't come. That same disclaimer didn't come up for the Man on the Flying Trapeze.
yeah,
Okay. Now, I would understand it if it did, if the whole show, for the whole show, they just put it at the beginning. And I could understand more. I could understand more that they put the disclaimer if they put it up for Popeye the Sailor. Because in that one, now, grant Popeye the Sailor was more technically a Betty Boop cartoon. That's basically where Popeye made his animated debut. But in that one, of course, yeah. Now again, this was just before the Hays Code was full. You remember what the Hays Code is, right?
not offhand.
Okay, the best way for me to explain the Hays Code is what you might say is the film industry's version of the Comics Code Authority. Except the Hays Code was a lot stricter than the Comics Code. So what the Comics Code Authority was for comics, the Hays Code was for Hollywood, basically, for the film industry. Except the Hays Code was far more restrictive in terms of for the films than the Comics Code Authority was for the comics. But and JR is here, JR Exner.
Hey, Jr.
Hail Xenu and Xena, hail Rick and Mike, hail JR. And of course, if you haven't already, if you can help out by liking, sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the question best of our ability. So now as I said, in the Popeye the Sailor cartoon, you had Betty Boop,
Yeah,
basically hula outfit, where basically up top the only thing covering her breast was a lei. You know what a lei is?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
The
flower thing.
flower thing. That was the only thing covering her breast. Now, if let's say the disclaimer came up for that, I could understand
Yeah.
that.
Well,
But
I think it's A. They just put it for no matter what, and maybe they put it in the middle instead of the beginning, like you would think. That's the only thing I can think of.
well, yeah, but again, and it might have made more sense to put it in the beginning, but again, and this is not something I could have missed because, as I said, I recorded this.
Yeah, yeah,
So if they had put it in the beginning as well, I would have still seen that. But
yeah.
but they put it they put it right before service for the guile, and now grant I don't know if service and the guile is in public domain. Otherwise, I might consider seeing if YouTube has it, then it probably let me check something here. Let me check here because if YouTube does in fact.
JR says, I just read a history of comic censorship, found out there something was a tentative failed comics code in the 1940s before the Comics Codes Authority, says JR. Oh, there was a tentative?
Okay, so yeah, uncolor corrected ending.
Yeah, the best I can think of is they put it in the middle for some reason, and it was supposed to be for all a moment. And just the fact that they do that for all cartoons from that day and age.
Yeah, so
But I could be wrong about that too. I don't
yeah,
know.
they don't really have the full. Doesn't look like they have the full. They have snippets of it, but they don't have the full episode on it.
Yeah,
And I
no
would,
problem.
but again, if it was available, I would show it just because just to comment. But let's see what history of comic censorship found out. There was a tentative failed comics code in the. Well, it was probably an experimental one that they were using because they were feeling like they were because the whole thing with the whole thing with comic censorship is that the HUAC was coming down on them, in the juvenile delinquency. Um, yes, it was another publisher's code, but most publishers didn't join, and it disappeared in 18 months. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So so, but anyways, as I was saying though, as I was watching that particular cartoon, I did not see anything
Yeah,
worth the disclaimer. So it's like I'm like sitting there scratching my head. Well, why are they okay?
uh, I've seen a similar disclaimer on movies or stuff from back then
Oh,
or whatever.
I'm sure, and I'm sure. Like for example, I've heard that Gone with the Wind people that I think something on some of the more recent re-releases of Gone with the Wind, they put disclaimers like that on that film, and that's considered a classic. You know,
Yeah,
so I
they
mean,
want they want to put this stuff on stuff that doesn't need it, and it is what it is.
well,
They're
because
gonna.
it's kind of funny because even when they, what they did was when they did put the disclaimer, they ended it by saying, "Yeah, we were thinking about not even showing this cartoon because we were thinking about not showing this cartoon, but if we didn't show it, then it would be like just saying that the prejudices didn't exist. Again, the only problem,
Yeah,
the only issue that I see with it again is that why put it on? There wasn't anything here that was really outrageously. anybody would find offensive unless you were going out of your way to be offended by it.
Yeah, well, there's enough people out there that do that, right?
I mean, the only aspect that I could think that anybody might find today's, probably particularly today's feminist crowd, would find offensive about service with a guile would be could be the idea of Popeye and Bluto trying to vie for her affections
Yeah,
and
two guys fighting over a girl.
yeah, that's about the only thing I could think of. Why, and that's even kind of silly, even because in that sense, if that's why they put the disclaimer up for it, they'd have to do that with like 95% of Popeye cartoons, because basically any and all Popeye cartoons with Popeye,
Yeah,
Bluto, and Olive Oil all involved Popeye and Bluto fighting over Olive.
yeah. Like I said, I've seen lots of, well, maybe lots, quite a few that shows or movies that get a disclaimer like that, and it's like thing. And then the funniest thing is, oh yes, we're showing it to you because maybe this can further the discussion about race or whatever about the prejudice of the time. It's like, yeah, nobody's gonna go do that on the water cooler.
Well,
Yeah,
first
well,
off,
we're talking about it right
as
now, but we're
as I
doing it
even said,
more.
as I
We're,
even said, I don't really think there was really an issue, aside from the wartime cartoons of pop, like for example, Your Sat Mr. Jap. There wasn't really anything racially, insensitive in most Popeye cartoons. Like
uh,
most Popeye cartoons prior to World War II and after World War II, you didn't really, aside from again some of the wartime cartoons where
or maybe it's just the fact that it didn't have a black person in it or an Asian person or whatever.
mhm, because outside
Jared,
of the wartime cartoons, the only other time I think you've seen Popeye, engaging with anybody outside of quote unquote the United States at the time might have been, in the mini feature, Popeye meets Sinbad the Sailor, where he,
yeah.
Olive and Wimpy are traveling through the desert and they encounter Sinbad and his band of pirates and all that. But again, it's one of those things where you know
Yeah, Jared's got another
the
comment.
1950s comics were disgusting. The Congressional Report had examples. Well, by the 50s, yeah, you were getting more, and that was what like the HUAC and the hearings on the juvenile delinquency were. Particularly with the horror comics, you know, a lot of them were going after like. So a lot of it was based on a psychiatrist study of comics and juvenile delinquency by the name of Frederick Worthen. Okay. And now the majority of it was dealing mostly with the violence aspect of it, of like a lot of the um, crime noir stuff. However, though even though the primary targets were the horror and the graphic nature of the horror and the crime noir comics, none of the genres are safe. The superhero genre, pretty famously, they cited Superman as being a fascist, Wonder Woman, with all the bondage and with the bondage fetishism, and then it was Batman and Robin with the homosexuality. Okay, that was part of it, but that wasn't really the big sticking point. Big sticking point was more the gore and violence in
Horror comics.
horror and crime noir comics. Crime noir as in like gangsters type comics.
Yeah.
Um, Oh yeah, but basically, the reason I wanted to bring that up because I just found it interesting. That they put the disclaimer that I mean, there are other Popeye cartoons where it would have made more sense to have that disclaimer up, but for that one, to put it before that one, from what I saw, there wasn't anything there that I could see that would have really warranted the disclaimer. It's just
Yeah, yeah, and I get that. Like I said, I've seen it on movies and TV shows where I look at it and I'm like, why the heck was this disclaimer there?
yeah. It was
But
so it was kind of that idea. So, anyways,
so
so we're
on with
talking
the
about
next
the
topic.
cartoon here, not a comic, but with that, so before we look at the Eric July stuff here, there's one more thing, and this was apparently, and I saw this little tidbit of a report. I would have liked to have Metal here for. Well, maybe I'll save that one to see if Metal comes in. Maybe we will go straight to Eric July stuff because Metal for this next for the other one that I wanted to talk about, I would have wanted Metal or at least some of the guys who were more into anime involved because it does involve
Anime.
an anime voice act. Well, a dub voice actress, Tara Strong. You know, um,
How
so I
strong
guess
is
we
she?
will. Yeah. So, anyways, um, and I just let me. All right. Want to see if yeah. Oh, were you able to send out the
Yeah,
were you?
I wasn't at first because of my internet going out, but I
Yeah,
was able to
yeah. Did you?
resend it
Oh,
after.
there's Metal.
Uh, hey,
Hey,
hopping in
hop
chat
in.
from my phone real quick to let you know I won't make it today. Spent the day putting up a sheetrock and dinner out at and out at dinner now with others.
Oh, okay. Well, I was kind of there was something I was hoping you could have popped in on Metal tonight because there was one of the things I don't know if you'd heard about some stuff going on with Tara Strong. I was gonna want you in on that particular conversation, but
Yeah,
knowing you won't be in now,
you
guess
can
then we'll just
either we can either try and do it or put it off till next week maybe.
well maybe we will do that. I think we'll move on to the Eric July because that the article that I covered this past week and his response should take a pretty good chunk. I mean we went what about 20 minutes or 25 minutes or so 20
Yeah,
25 minutes
we're coming up on 40 after.
on the 40 on the Popeye cartoon. So
Yeah.
that's good to see. But anyways, so I think I will then just move on to the Eric July story here. I go over both articles here with the time we have left here because I covered this the other day. Um, so this is the article I covered the other day, of course. So we'll
Uh-huh.
get it, and then I'll give my own commentary as well. You'll reiterate some of the things I pointed out.
Yeah, and I'll
And then you can.
probably say my 2 cents as it's going along.
All right, so here we go. Baron Gilfillan and Good Shepherd Ministries to sue Eric July and Rippaverse claim, and smaller quotes there, Ice comic book series as a trademark infringement. Article by John F. Trent, published October 11, 2023.
Okay, well, I have to say, just right from the start, I know we're going to get into it. I don't think it is because theirs is an acronym for their ministry. His is a name of his character.
Well, yeah, and basically I had the same thought. That's one of the things you know That's one of the things I was saying too. I mean, they're basically, and we'll go a little bit deeper when we read through the article here. But basically, they're claiming that people would get confused between the two entities, and I would sitting there going, how would you confuse a school of ministry with a person?
Yeah. Well, and an acronym like I never even
Right.
heard of that thing.
Let's go through the article.
Yeah.
We'll hit that as we're going, because
Okay.
if we put it all out on the table now, we won't read any of the article. So
I'm sure we will and still comment, but
yeah. So Dr. Baron Gilfillan announced that he and Good Shepherd Ministries plan to sue Eric July and the Ripaverse over what they see as a trademark infringement over the graphic novel series Isom. And there's the Isom poster. In a lengthy post to social media website X, Gil Fallon, or Gil, I think Gil Fillon, I think his name is Gil Fillon, but in this particular case they misspelled it there. Who is the founder of the International School of Ministry, ISOM, in parentheses there, explained why he plans to go ahead and sue July in the Ripaverse. He stated, quote, "It is with deep sadness that Good Shepherd Ministries International announces that its efforts to reasonably settle its ISOM trademark dispute with Mr. Eric July and his business Rippleverse LLC have been unsuccessful. Good Shepherd had hoped to avoid the time, effort, expense, and uncertainty associated with litigation, but settlement negotiations have reached an impasse." Unquote. Okay,
well,
so
they couldn't just accept that the fact
what
that he
was
has.
that, Rick?
I said, well, really, because we don't know behind the scenes, we don't know who's being unreasonable. But yeah, all they would have to do is say you never have him, be part of a ministry, Good Shepherd ministry, or something like that. It's like,
Well, we'll get into some of his reasonings, but based on that right there, and I hate to say this about a Christian, but I think this particular Christian may be falling to the sin of avarice here, because
yeah,
this is my impression. This is more or less my impression here as I was reading this article. Once I got through this article, okay. I think what happened is that this guy saw that Eric July had made something like $1 million
$3 million
with his comic, and decided that he wanted a big piece of that. He may, my impression is he may have been trying to be greedy.
JR says Isom has a cross on his thing. Well, just because he has a cross on his thing, and that's only as a belt buckle.
Yeah, JR was here the other day when I was covering the article. Where we will get to that. But my impression based on this statement is that I think he saw that the ISOM name had got millions. But anyways.
Yeah. And nobody confused it with the Good Shepherd International School of Ministry.
So anyways, quote here, "Good Shepherd will now serve its lawsuit on Mr. July's company and seek relief in court. With the serving of this lawsuit, all previous settlement offers are off the table," unquote. He continued, quote, "Good Shepherd intends to defend with everything it has its good ISOM name. We created that name over 25 years ago, have grown it prolifically on a global scale." Now, okay, even if they have had that particular trademark for 25 years, right? Before, let me ask you this, Rick, and it's a pretty easy question to ask. Before Eric July came out with his comic book character Isom, Have you ever heard of the term ISOM before the comic
No,
book show?
I'm not even sure what
And
that
I
was.
haven't either. And I don't think a lot of people have. Outside of maybe outside of certain like certain.
And I'm and the thing is too, I don't even think I've heard of the International School of Ministry.
I mean, yeah, the
Yeah,
international school
although
ministry. I mean,
there's a lot of ministry colleges, stuff like that out
well,
there.
there's one here where in the city I live in. We have a Biola University, which at one point was called Biola College. It
Yeah,
was referred to as it's Biola is an acronym for Bible Institute of Los Angeles. There's also I think Hope International University. There's a few like Christian colleges, pretty well known Christian colleges out there,
yeah,
Christian universities out there. Okay,
yeah,
and within certain Christian circles and certain Christian academic circles, theological circles, yeah, they're prolific. But
now, I also, on the other hand, I have heard. Now, I'm not sure whether this is the same organization, but Good Shepherd. I've heard of Good Shepherd Ministries because there's the Good Shepherd in Hamilton, and as far as I know, they're at least Canada wide. I'm not sure whether they're in the States as well. Um, so they help with the homeless. They're part of the, I believe, the Catholic thing for helping the homeless, and they have apartments and all that, and they have a food bank and
right.
stuff like
Yeah, I think
that.
I've heard of Good Shepherd Ministries too. They've done a lot of good charity work, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but again, I don't think prior to the introduction of the hero ISOM, I don't think the mainstream public have probably
yeah.
heard of ISOM or
Yeah,
you know
and I'm somewhat a lot into the Christian stuff. If I shouldn't say if anybody was going to have heard of them, it would have been me. But I'm sure
right.
there's other people here too that could have easily heard
But
about.
let's see. So Jr. has a couple comments here. So a third-rate Christian correspondence course college being a scam. Say it isn't so.
Well, to that, wouldn't say it's necessarily a scam or whatever that place. I don't know enough about it, so um, if it's connected with the Good Shepherd that I'm thinking about, I would doubt it isn't a scam. But
Next televangelists will be scams.
so like I can't say whether it's connected with the Good Shepherd that I know of, but I'm not saying that I believe this organization is a scam in any way or their school is a scam. I don't know enough about it. But yeah, there are a lot out there, and there's a lot of definitely third-rate ones. And I'm not sure whether it's correspondence or whether you can go there in person again either.
Yeah. So, anyways, continuing on with the article here. In the ensuing decades, we are at peace knowing that we tried hard to resolve this out of court through a simple settlement. Even though we failed, we are confident that a jury trial and the legal system will bring a just resolution to this matter. Unquote. Next, Gil Philin.
Oh, one sec. JR says, if you want real theology degree, you can go to a real university. Well, just because we haven't heard of them doesn't mean they're not a real university or college.
Right. Well, I don't think there are a lot of people outside of California or I don't think there are a lot of people who know of Biola, which is the university I referenced earlier here in the city I live in. But there might not be a lot of people outside of certain Christian communities or Christian academic communities that know Biola, but doesn't mean that they're false or third rate or anything like that. Now, Rick, I think what we also have to I think we have to take, of course, JR's comments with a bit of a grain of salt too. Just
Yeah. Well, I get it. I get the fact that there's a lot of idiots out there. We'll say it nicely, that are trying to scam people, and My only thing is before calling something a scam or whatever is I'd like to look into it first before saying that, and not saying that it's not saying it is.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have classes. They mainly sell courses in Nigeria, land, prosperity, gospel. Have you done? I'm not saying you haven't, but I'm just wondering: have you done any research, Jr.?
Generalizing. Tim, I know I sent you the link. If you want to join us in the conversation here, we're actually going over the article I went over the other day about Eric July being sued by Good Shepherd Ministries over the ISOM trademark. So if you want to come in and join in on the conversation. Yeah, I did a bit of research. A bit, I see. I will give Tim a chance to come in if he wants to come in and join in on the conversation. Before we continue on.
Yeah, I did. I did a bit of research. Okay.
Yeah, JR was saying he did a bit of research and then a bit I see. So,
Yeah. Programs and degrees, bachelor's, associates, accreditation.
oh wait, are you actually looking it up, Rick?
Yeah, I'm on their website right now. ISOM does not issue degrees, but we work with 3 universities and seminars in the U.S. who issue degrees that are recognized here in the U.S. and around the world for ministry training. These degrees are recognized in the USA, but not government accredited, which means you cannot get federal student loans for your studies. You cannot transfer your credit to universities where people pay tens of thousands of dollars. You cannot use your degree for secular employment advancement, where an employer has to pay you because of educational advance. Blah blah blah.
It's hard to tell since I have done no research, so I would have to at least admit that. I'm a member of the Nation of Islam and follow Black Hebrew Israelites and formed Mormon Church in Toronto. However, I do know that preachers do have to get a degree to be considered a preacher.
Not necessarily. I've been to a few churches where that they've never went to school for, like, they're not.
Well, I think if you were to head into an Amish community, they have many elders there. They have some elders who maybe some of the chief elders are like the preachers there. They probably don't feel the need to have a degree. So
There's a lot of legit preachers that don't necessarily have went to college or whatever. You can study and be a quote unquote preacher without, I would say, myself, just because the initial disciples, they didn't go to college or whatever. They just learned from Jesus. So, and then everybody after, or a lot of people after.
You don't need any. Well, Rick just pointed out that you don't need a degree because, like, a lot of Jesus' disciples didn't get. In fact, Jesus picked them because they were not the quote unquote learned class. If you remember, the Pharisees were.
Yeah.
So
The thing that I would say about that is, even whether preachers there's lots of quote unquote accredited preachers, ones that have gone to schooling and they teach a lot of false doctrine. One that I'll say right off the bat, Joel Olstein or whatever his name. I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him. I believe he's went to college and all that.
Timothy just reminds us, which is true, there was no established church when Jesus did his ministry, which was true. There wasn't established. Well, at least there wasn't an established.
But after
Christian church, there was obviously synagogue. Judaism.
But then there was that establishment. But when after he died and rose, again they were out preaching, and there was no established thing. Probably for the first 500,000 years, there was no thing to go in, or more to get your papers, if you will. You have to shout, say, "Can you heal stuff?" and cash checks. Yeah, well, then obviously that shouting is all right, but paying for healing is definitely wrong, and that. But like I'm looking at trying to make something of the courses here, but JR said, so obviously JR said he's done a little bit of research, not a lot. Take that for what it is, everybody. And well, I am a Christian, so I believe in healing from faith. Oh yeah, it's possible, Timothy. I think JR can correct me if I'm wrong. I think JR is more talking about the scam people out there that are trying to profit off of people that are unwell, and like, send me $50 and I'll pray for you or whatever. No, we as Christians are supposed to be praying for whoever asks without money, or send me $50 and I'll send you this prayer shawl and all this sort of crap.
Anyway,
I think that's more along the lines what JR is talking about, and I disagree with all that sort of stuff. But I do believe in prayer. But anyways, we've gotten off track.
Well, because we are dealing with a Christian entity here, and there are some very strong opinions about Christianity. Anyways, Rick, if you want to talk to the chat for a moment, I need to make some lighting adjustments here, so I'm going to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back.
Yeah. But yeah, whether this ministry here that we're talking about is legit or not, I don't think is necessarily the crux of this. Hopefully they're legit. If they're not, that's a different story. But I just think they're being idiots. Forget whether they were a Christian ministry or not a Christian ministry. Just their whole thing on, like, oh yeah, we got this acronym that we've had for 25 years, over 25 years, and because you came up with a character with the same name, we're gonna sue because we have the trademark. Yeah.
Well, and I'm okay. Whether or not, we did get sidetracked because we're basically trying to say whether or not the International School of Ministry, Good Shepherd, whether or not they're legit, they're not legit. That's not even the point of this article. The point of this article is the fact that they're suing over trademark infringement, and we kind of got off track there. And Rick, I'll probably talk to you a little bit more why we got off track.
Yeah. I know why we got off track, but it's all right to chase some rabbits every so often, but we got to make sure we come back to
Yeah,
what.
and let's get back to the let's let's get back to the article here. So next, Glyphilin explain, or again another, no, that's a grammatical issue or a typing issue, but next, Glyphilin explained his main dispute with July and the Rippaverse. Quote, the core issue in this dispute is trademark infringement. The basic test for trademark infringement is whether consumers are likely to be confused as to the source of the trademarked things. In other words, are consumers likely to think there is a connection between one, Good Shepherd's decades of using its ISOM trademark and Good Shepherd's U.S. registration of its ISOM trademark, and two, Mr. July and his company starting a little over a year ago to use ISOM as the name of a graphic serial novel character. Now this is one of the points that I even made. So this guy apparently, I guess he must think people are just stupid or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
this guy. Okay.
The only reason he's going
apparently
down.
This guy believes that people will confuse a school of ministry with a person.
Well, a comic book character.
No less.
And Eric July has said nothing about, as far as I know, he said nothing about this thing. The only reason they're going down this is because of the idiot that sent them, pretending to be a reporter and asking. I don't think the guy was a real reporter. I could be wrong. If I am, oh well. But he's going based on one thing that was not, I believe, not legit, and that he's thinking it's legit.
And again, my personal impression after reading this article, and I told you this earlier, Rick, I believe that this Dr. Gilfillan saw that Eric July made all this money off of the ISOM name, and now he's a little, it's like, well, I want some of that money. Give me that money because we've had that trademark for 25 years.
Yeah, well,
I hate to say that about a Christian. I hate to say that this guy possibly might be suffering from the sin of avarice here.
I'm not sure whether or not, and I could be wrong, I might say in the article, I'm not sure whether he'll get any money out of this or just whether if he happens to win, which I'm going to be really surprised if he does win this case. I think it'll just more be, what's his name? Eric July will have to change Isom's name.
Yeah. So, okay, and continuing on here. So, quote, as mentioned below, we already are far past in smaller quotes, likelihood of confusion. We have evidence that Mr. July and his company have caused actual confusion, unquote, he declared.
Yeah, by the one person that sent him a letter asking.
Yeah. Glyphilin elaborated, quote, Mr. July and his company used our ISOM trademark as a character name and the title to launch their Rippaverse company.
Oh, okay, one sec. You have to prove that Eric July knew about your ISOM trademark.
Mm-hmm. And that'd be a very hard thing to prove, that he actually had foreknowledge of the ISOM trademark before
decided to try and profit off that. Well, he hasn't tried to profit off that because he hasn't mentioned it at all. The only people buying this are people that know about his comic thing.
Yeah, so I'm just looking to get carried away.
Yeah, they're just talking back and forth.
Yeah. I wasn't going to get in. If they want to go back and forth. I wasn't gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So let's see. Trying to remember. Okay. So they found a receptive audience, and every month their infringing use of our ISOM trademark has been increasing. And then unquote, and then quote, this is being accomplished through search engine optimization, SEO, social media posts, and other online postings that highlight our trademark ISOM name, unquote.
Yeah, but it's not your ISOM name. It's your ISOM acronym for your name.
Plus, as I said though, the people again, I don't think Eric July or anybody who's buying the ISOM comic knew about the International School of Ministry to begin with.
I know I didn't.
I didn't either. I did not either.
You know, I bought it. You know, I am I think a fairly versed Christian in you know, some popular organizations that are out there for schooling and all that, and I've never heard of these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Anyway.
Or not that or if I've heard of them just by their name, International School of Ministry. I've never heard the acronym ISOM associated with them.
Right. Okay.
And I'm just saying, just to be careful, because maybe in my, you know, some odd number of years, you know, as a Christian, you know, I might have heard of them. I can't remember, but I know I didn't hear them. Maybe I even did hear about ISOM, but you know, it didn't stick.
Right. He stated, quote, as a result, their infringement of our ISOM trademark is now at a point where it is colliding with our customers and our organizational use and cannot be ignored. Again, I don't know how. I mean, how is a comic book character? I mean, this guy must really think people are idiots or something like that, because how would anybody confuse a comic book character with a school of ministry? They're two completely different entities. And even if you want to, okay, so let's say first off, when if you were to search for ISOM, does it, which ISOM is coming up? Is the if you are looking, because I'm sure
if you're looking for the International School of Ministry,
highly prolific names, if the ISOM comic book and the International School of Ministry, if they're both kind of up there, they're gonna, like, if you were to plug in the search engine, okay, ISOM, and they're 1 and 2, and then you're looking for, okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the comic book or anything associated with comic book, or are you looking for the school of ministry? I'm sure whatever, the people who are using the search engine can probably
differentiate between a superhero comic book character and a ministry. And even if you have a hard time finding it as ISOM, then you go look up International School of Ministry. Oh, geez. You have to type a few extra letters.
And Tim has joined us. Hey, Tim.
What's up?
Hey, Tim.
So what's your take on all this with this lawsuit and stuff like that?
I mean, does it really cover a character's name? I mean, does the logo of the comic book look exactly like their logo?
No.
Well, I think they're claiming it does, because as I said, I read the article the other day, so I went over this the other day. But
has Eric ever contacted the company and see if they can work it out quietly?
Well, they said they did earlier.
Oh, so it's been settled then.
No, they haven't worked. They haven't worked it out. That's why they're suing, because they can't work it out.
Huh. Could he just name it the real name of the character or
Well,
something like that?
that is the real name of the character.
All
Isom.
right. Yeah.
Really?
Isom is the name of the character, and then the other so I'm just gonna real quickly.
It's not even abbreviated, so
See,
Okay.
if you look right here, there is what their logo looks like.
right. And that's what his they don't even the logo doesn't even look similar.
All right. Okay. Hold on. So I can help Tim get caught up here on what because I'm gonna reread this like quickly, just without stopping.
Oh,
Extra.
extra.
I want Tim to understand. I want Tim. We're not. I'm just gonna read it real quick to get
Okay.
back to the point to where we were. Okay. So Dr. Baron Glifilin announced that he and Good Shepherd Ministries plan to sue Eric July and the Rippaverse over what they see as a trademark infringement over the graphic novel series Isom. All right.
Seems stupid, but whatever.
In a lengthy post to social media website X, Glifilin, they misspelled his name here, I guess.
Just call him Gil.
Who is the founder of the International School of Mystery, in parentheses Isom, explained why he plans to go ahead and sue July and Rippaverse. He stated, quote, "It is with deep sadness that Good Shepherd Ministries International announces that its efforts to reasonably settle its Isom trademark dispute with Mr. Eric July and his business, Rippaverse LLC, have been unsuccessful. Good Shepherd had hoped to avoid the time, effort, expense, and uncertainty associated with litigation, but settlement negotiations have reached an impasse." So they did try, and this story's kind of been out there for like a month or so. They were trying to settle it out of court, but
JR says Isom is an African American name, and then he also says he is arguing because Google search results are conflating. Wonder how strong that makes his case. Not very strong.
Well, I mean, by that logic, should I sue? Because when I type in the word Melvin, there's an old comic book that was like a funny book that was called Melvin. Should I then sue whoever made that book?
No, you mean should they sue you? Because
Well,
they had it first.
Right. Well, you know what I mean.
Okay. Anyways, quote, Good Shepherd will now serve its lawsuit on Mr. July's company and seek relief in court. With the serving of this lawsuit, all previous settlement offers are off the table, unquote. He continued, quote, Good Shepherd intends to defend with everything it has its good ISO name. We created that name over 25 years ago and have grown it prolifically on a global scale.
No, they didn't create that name 25 years ago. They created the International School of Ministry name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the ensuing decades, we are at peace knowing that we tried hard to resolve this out of court through a simple settlement. Even though we failed, we are confident that a jury trial and the legal system will bring a just resolution to this matter, unquote. Next, Glifilin explained his main dispute with July and the Rippaverse. Quote, the core issue in this dispute is trademark infringement. A basic test for trademark infringement is whether consumers are likely to be confused as to the source of the trademark things. In other words, are consumers likely to think there is a connection between one, Good Shepherd's decades of using its Isom trademark and Good Shepherd's U.S. registration of its Isom trademark, and two, Mr. July and his company starting a little over a year ago to use Isom as the name of a graphic serial novel character, unquote.
Okay, what I was trying to point out before was what JR said here. He's arguing that because of Google search. That's what I was trying to argue with the name Melvin. There's...
Yeah.
But, to correct something, if you start a restaurant that's a burger restaurant and you name it McDonald's, then they would have a point there. But if it's like McDonald's and it's something else, then I don't think they can. And it's a different style logo. Then there's not. I don't think they can sue you for that.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah. Well,
I've been making the same point there. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, he's claiming there's confusion, but how do you confuse a school of ministry with a comic book character, or a person, if you want to put it into that perspective? How do you? I mean, they're two completely different entities there.
Yeah. Although I know this isn't exactly real, I think of what's the name of it from Coming to America, McDougal's, where he had the golden arch instead of the golden arches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, McDonald's was trying to get him, but he apparently was able to stay in business. And I know that's a movie, so I'm not sure how much reality is involved in that, but and they were both burger places. He had the golden arch, and he was.
I mean, by that logic, should McDonald's sue Tom McDonald for having the name Donald and his McDonald? Donald his name, Tom McDonald.
Yeah. Anyways, let because I want to make sure you're caught up there. So let me get through this up to the point where we were, and then we'll get into the commentary here. So, quote, as mentioned below, we are already far past a, in smaller quotes, likelihood of confusion. We have evidence that Mr. July and his company have caused actual confusion, unquote, he declared.
No, not really, because none of us knew you existed.
Well, I'll get to that in a moment.
JR says yes. That's why I wonder how strong the argument about mixed Google searches can strengthen the confusion argument.
All right.
Yeah,
well, anyways,
that's true.
Glyphilin elaborated, quote, Mr. July and his company used our ISOM trademark as a character name and title to launch their Rippaverse company. They found a receptive audience, and every month their infringing use of our ISOM trademark has been increasing, unquote. Quote, this is being accomplished through search engine optimization, SEO, social media posts, and other online postings that highlight our trademarked ISOM name. He stated, quote, as a result, their infringement of our ISOM trademark is now at a point where it is colliding with our customers and our organizational use and cannot be ignored.
Question.
Yeah, I doubt it's colliding with your customers and organizational use.
Question. If it's a religious organization, why do they have customers?
Well, by customers, they mean people that are going to their college. So,
well, I mean, a religious organization shouldn't have customers. Jesus didn't have customers.
Well, it all depends on how you think about it. It's like a Christian bookstore has customers, right?
Don't you Ben Kenobi me?
Or it like, like would you call them customers going to a
Christian bookstore,
a regular college? Probably not. It's probably not the best terminology, but you could easily call somebody that's going to a regular college a customer too.
I would argue.
I don't think it's the best terminology, but
I would argue that when it's a Christian bookstore, you're not customers because it's a Christian. It's Christian. They're customers because it's a bookstore.
Yeah,
a little different.
Yeah, but because they're a college or whatever, a school, are they customers?
No, they're students.
A school that you go, yeah.
They're students.
Yeah, so but they're customers at the same time because they're purchasing the right to go there. They're purchasing something from the school, right?
In a sense.
Now, like I said, I don't think it's the best terminology to use. Yeah. I think it would have been better to say students or something to that effect.
It seems a little petty.
Based on what we've read so far, I think this is a bit of a stretch overall because basically, again, I go back to the point I made earlier. I've made several times about all this. How do you confuse a school of ministry with a comic book character. They're two different entities.
Yeah, that is a
Okay,
point. Too.
this guy, my impression of this Dr. Guthun is that this guy seems to think people are just so stupid that if they were wanting to search one or the other, they couldn't tell the difference.
Actually, I got something relative to this. There's a band called the Jasons, and they're they're a Friday the 13th themed band. They did an album called Get Sued, where it was Ramones style, Ramones riffs, but with Misfits lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, and so it's the Misfit, the Ramones eagle with the Misfits logo in this chest. They actually did get a cease and desist from Jerry Only, saying it would cause confusion. And the lead singer of the Jason said, "I think this kind of falls under parody since it's a." It's
And
a
All right,
good.
well, before we continue on, guys, we have another individual who's joined us. Hey, RJ.
Good evening.
So have
Good
you
afternoon.
been kind of following along what we've been talking about here with this article?
I have been following all of this for a long time, and the more that Ripa fights this, the more ISOM continues to rise in Google rankings, which is just going to strengthen the case of the ministry that confusion is being caused in the industry. The ministry has a trademark. They have Title 16 to it, which means that they have the print logo for this. It doesn't matter whether it's a different concept or genre. They have the print logo. They have the logo to be used in printing books and pamphlets. If the ministry wanted to make a comic book, they're not. But just because they're not doesn't mean that July can. They have the right reserved to do that.
Well, what should he change the name of the book to?
He shouldn't change the name of the book at all. And I'll tell you why. He doesn't have to change the name of the character. All he has to do is expand the title. Ripa versus ISOM. Problem solved.
Eric July's Isom.
Yeah, you could put if you want to put his own name on it, but he's already got Ripaverse trademarked. See, the BBC owns this little television show called The Avengers. And that is why when you go to Walmart and you look at the toy line, you see Marvel's The Avengers on the toys that they've trademarked, because that way they get around the trademark law. They don't cause the confusion.
That is such a simple solution.
It's a very simple solution. We've seen it with Shazam. I mean, Captain Marvel was Captain Marvel for decades under DC, right. But they couldn't create a book called Captain Marvel because Marvel Comics secured that trademark when it lapsed.
Right. Even though there was a Captain Marvel Adventures comic by Fawcett back in the 40s.
Yeah,
but that was before Marvel had the trademark to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you see, I don't like. For me, again, I don't see where. To me, based on how I was reading this, my feeling is that this guy saw that Eric July got a lot of money for the ISOM name, even though had nothing. Now, mind you, I don't think any of us had even heard of the International School of Ministry before all this went down, and a lot of
only people who were looking for it.
Huh?
Only people who were looking for it.
Question: Should the International House of Pancakes sue the International School of Ministry for using the word international? There might be some confusion about that.
No, that's absolutely not the case at all. Because what's trademarked is ISOM. Now, July went on and did this silly little video about, hey, Sonic has a restaurant and and they serve chili dogs, and Sega has a character named Sonic, and he eats chili dogs.
RJ, I was planning on, once we finish with this article, I was going to, because they do have Eric July's response in an article on here as well. I was going to go through that with you guys as well.
I would like to see a court battle between Sonic the restaurant and Sega.
Well, you won't. And here's why, because I dismantled his argument. Sonic the restaurant has a trademark, but not on the word Sonic. Sonic's trademark is Sonic Drive-In Service at the Speed of Sound. All of those words, that's their trademark. Sega doesn't have a trademark on Sonic. Trademark has a trademark on Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic and Friends. Neither one of them have a trademark on the word Sonic.
Wait, I got it. Isom the black guy.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Problem solved. Let's go on to World Hunger now.
Rippaverse Universe. presents
my
Isom.
my impression of this though was I think, and this based on because I read this article already a few days ago. My impression was this preacher guy, what have you. He saw that Eric July made a lot of money on it and suffering from avarice now. Because
you know how he saw it?
They did try to settle, but they couldn't come to a settlement.
Yeah.
Well, Eric July says he never talked to him.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get back to the
Eric
article.
July's lawyers talked to him.
Hey, Redfield.
Eric says he never talked to them at all, and they filed the lawsuit. Now, understand, filing the lawsuit is the first thing they have to do before they talk. Just because it's filed doesn't mean that it's being pushed. You got it filed and ready to go, but that doesn't mean it's been served. That's the word I was looking for. It hadn't been served.
The good Lord told me to sue the pants off him, and it was good.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what their business logic is. They own the mark. They own the mark for those purposes. And he found out about it because guess what? Someone in the marketplace got confused, which is the whole point of having a trademark. And they wrote to them and said, hey, are you guys behind this Isom comic book? Because it's what comes up in the Google searches now.
Yeah. Well, I heard, although it was from Eric July, that it most likely was somebody that was trying to how do I say it?
Intentionally stir up stuff. Yeah. Could have been, but one of the letters didn't read like that. And it doesn't matter because it just proves that there was confusion in the marketplace, or there could be. And just the very possibility of confusion in the marketplace is all that it takes for the courts to decide on the part of the person who actually does own the mark.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't make much sense to me. That really doesn't make much.
How
would anybody?
I don't see there any confusion, but
I mean, how would anybody confuse a comic book character with a school of ministry?
Well, okay, so Kellogg's owns this thing that they serve for breakfast called Cherry Pop-Tarts. Mm-hmm. And Larry Wells decided to make a comic book called Cherry Pop-Tart. He got one issue of it out, and Kellogg sued him. Why? Confusion in the marketplace. They did not want their brand associated with the porn comic book that he was putting out. No one was thinking that they were going to have breakfast with a nude cartoon character. There was no confusion in the marketplace on this.
Yeah.
But the brand had to be protected.
Yeah. That I can see.
I'm sorry.
It's the same principle, just in a more absurd presentation.
Anyways, let's continue with the article here, because this is stirring some very interesting and educational conversation.
You got me to log in for this, okay?
What was that?
You got me to log in for this one.
Thank you. I've been wanting to get back on these conversations because I knew I figured you'd have some stuff to contribute to it. So anyways, quote, the recent lawsuit controversy over their infringement has only amplified, and that's basically what you were saying, RJ, everything, and resulted in extensive coverage of Isom on podcasts, blogs, X, and YouTube channels. Hence
why we're doing it.
These are only adding to the confusion, which is basically which is basically what you had just said, RJ.
Yep, and this very video is adding to the pile of comic book Isom talk.
Wait.
Prove that there's confusion in the marketplace.
You mean that I am actually that by covering this, I'm actually contributing to the confusion?
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes.
Okay.
It's another thing that can show up when someone Googles Isom.
I stated several times. How do you confuse a school of ministry with a comic book character?
Because the School of Ministry owns the trademark for the purpose of publishing. And this is something that's being published under that name. So people have asked, is the School of Ministry, because they've done Bible comics before, you know. They've done religious themed comic books before. And it's very likely that the ministry could use their trademark to put out a Bible themed comic book like the Action Bible. They could put out their own. They might say, hey, you know, a good way to teach people in our ministry, because that's what we do is teach, is to use the comic book format. Why don't we start putting out a comic book to make our lessons simpler and easier to understand?
Some of the things you're saying, Glyphilin, was also pointed out. My whole point, though, is I think from a logical standpoint, it's still a bit of a stretch.
Now, he can stay the character. They're not going to confuse him with the character. They're not going to confuse the ministry with the character. They're confusing the ministry's publishing industry with July's publishing industry. That's the confusion, because the book is named ISOM.
Yeah,
the book needs to change its name, and ISOM can stay the character.
Now, the question is, do they have the trademark on ISOM, the word ISOM, or do they have the trademark on International School of Ministry?
No, they have it on ISOM. They have the word mark.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways, Glyphilin then listed a number of reasons that he believes are causing confusion between the two entities. Both organizations spell ISOM name in the exact same way, which is true. As a result, internet searches of the word ISOM bring up both organizations' products side by side using images, and on YouTube, this confusion is amplified. Now, again, from a logical standpoint, I don't see the confusion here. People who are looking for the comic are going to focus on the comic information. People who focus on the School of Ministry are going to focus on the School of Ministry. Yeah. From a logical standpoint, this again, it's to me, it's kind of weak.
Yeah, and I get RJ's legal point.
Yeah. Social media hashtags, including ISOM, are simply confusing, especially hashtag ISOM. Now that one, maybe, all right, maybe there might be.
Well, no, because
here's the thing. I just did a Google. I just Googled ISOM and I went to the image tabs. So let's say I'm a pastor and I need some images from the School of Ministry for the lesson presentation. And the first 10 things I get are of this guy in a costume written by a guy who goes on his YouTube stream and curses quite a bit. Gosh, is the ministry actually supporting this? If they are, do I really want to support this organization any longer, or should I pull out?
That's actually, and we would have got to that in a few moments here. That's actually one of the arguments Glyphilin actually made later in this article.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, that sort of argument I get too.
Mm-hmm.
How's that for a change in name?
But
well, the reason I just looked at the private chat because I seem
I saw.
Yeah. Anyways,
how's that for a name change?
Yeah.
Well, my only thought here is with RJ's thing is the character still going to become ISOM. Won't it still get confusing if somebody's looking up for the character ISOM?
No, because there's nothing being sold that's called ISOM. The problem's not with a character being named ISOM. The problem is with a book being named ISOM.
Yeah, but I know there's Superman, but if you look up you can look up various characters' names in books. Like you can look up Captain Marvel, and be looking for,
Sandman.
the real one. But
but as long as nothing's being sold that way, notice that both Marvel and DC have a character named Sandman. DC owns the trademark on Sandman, so they can actually put out a book called Sandman and have for decades. Marvel can't even put out a toy of their Sandman without saying Marvel's Sandman.
Yeah.
To differentiate between the two characters.
I got.
It's not what's being talked about. It's what's being sold. The
How about-
physical object being sold and branded.
If they change their name, they could change their name to ISOMAPC, International School of Ministry and Pancakes.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
And they
I
could
But you're not going to
just think
change. They were there. They own the mark. They don't have to.
I think you'd still would get a little bit of with what you're talking about. I think you'd still get a little bit of possible confusion. Not that I would think many people would confuse the two, but anyways, we should let Mike finish.
Well, I mean, I like the back and forth here because obviously we're all learning through the process here as we're going. That's a big part of why I like to do this.
Yeah, and it's a very good legal argument that RJ is saying and all that.
Yeah. Both organizations pronounce the ISOM name in the exact same way. You get that? Both organizations are engaged in online sales, publishing content, which RJ just said. Both organizations have products that have a Christian theme or mark, i.e., Mr. July included a cross on his character's belt.
I wouldn't consider his Christian theme. I've read it.
Both organizations have overlapping conservative Christian audiences.
Semi.
Do they?
Yeah. Remember, July's audience is a lot of Glenn Beck's audience, and Glenn Beck is very religious.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of conservatives in the audience, and a few of those would be Christians. I wouldn't say his is Christian themed, his book.
Well, we're about to get to some of the other reasonings too here. After, but let me just. So both organizations are involved in charity work. Both organizations have merch products that look very similar. Glyphilin.
Do they?
What was that, Rick?
I'm not so sure whether they have products that are very similar looking.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Merch products. He's talking about, when he talks about merch products, he's talking about hats and T-shirts.
Yeah.
So T-shirts that say ISOM on them look like the ministry shirts that say ISOM on them.
Maybe.
There's nothing about the shirt. There's nothing about the shirt that says, this is a comic book company. This is a comic book character. It just says ISOM.
I think he's usually got his character on it when he says it.
Right.
So,
Not on the hats.
maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen all the merch, so I'm just iffy on that one. Without having seen it all, I guess. So
Glyphilin then cites 2 emails as evidence that there is "quote unquote" actual confusion. Their validity, while noting it does not matter.
Nope,
well, yeah, because the whole thing that got this whole issue started apparently were some people who essentially were trying to get Eric July "quote unquote" canceled or whatever.
Or possibly that's what his explanation is. I trust that he's telling the truth as far as he knows it, but he could be wrong too.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think, as RJ sort of pointed out.
Question: was it the same people that drove to his warehouse and put money that was drawn on?
I don't know if it was that same person or not.
Yeah.
By the way, just pointing out, I have a video on my channel of somebody going by my warehouse and slapping money onto it. And if anybody else wants to vandalize my warehouse by slapping money onto it, please do.
Yes.
I saw that video, RJ. That was interesting.
I don't have a warehouse, but could you please slap money on my window? That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you the address.
Terrorize me with 50s. I dare you.
Yeah, how dare you? Do it more.
He states, quote, regardless of the validity of the accusations contained in the above emails, it is easy to see how Good Shepherd can get discredited by every controversy generated or faced by Mr. July and his ISOM comic book brand.
Exactly. And that's where the damage to the brand comes in.
I do think it does matter the validity because, maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. If they're doing it for the purpose that Eric says, then the validity does matter because it means nobody.
It could be.
There's not going to be the confusion, but
Well,
in my
but
opinion.
then, but
At
then
least
again,
not
maybe,
legally.
but then again, maybe the person who started all this, that causing confusion was probably the intention in the first place.
Yeah.
And now confusion exists, and trademarks exist to prevent confusion. Therefore, the trademark has to be enforced. It's unfortunate for Eric that this was started as a troll, but the law is the law. And now the law steps in to fix this trolling.
Yeah, and the solution is pretty simple. All he's got to do is put his name.
Yeah,
or
Ripper versus Isom. Yeah,
or Eric July's Isom.
something like that.
Yeah. I mean, especially since the ministry is a charity. It's like the paragraph here says, it's a 501c3. And what's the biggest controversy that Eric's been facing down in the last month? The charity work that he did with ISOM. Now you have not just ISOM and ISOM butting heads in the marketplace. You have ISOM and charity butting heads with ISOM and charity, and with there being controversy about one ISOM charity, it could affect the contributions of people to the other ISOM charity. If they Google and see ISOM charity controversy, how many people read the articles and not the headlines?
Lots.
Lots.
I love having these panels, particularly when we have really like tough topics like this. And I like this back and forth. I like this very informative, educational back and forth here. We're not getting too personal with each other. We're listening. We're learning. This is great. It may get heated at times, but we still keep it in perspective, and I do appreciate that, you guys. I really do.
I don't think anybody's mad at anybody here.
No,
we've all
I know.
got different opinions on what we think is the right thing, and as much as I've criticized Eric's books before, and honestly, not really even criticized his book because I haven't read his book. I've criticized some of his business decisions, like not looking up the trademark for ISOM before creating a book. I think that was a poor
who would even think that there's something for ISOM out there?
It doesn't matter. If you're going to put something in the marketplace, you trademark it. He trademarked Rippaverse. He knew enough to look for that.
Yeah. Or did he look, or did he just apply for it without even looking?
Well, by applying for it, a search has to be done, and the result comes back to you. So if he had applied for ISOM, so either he didn't apply for ISOM and just decided to plow ahead with it, or he did apply for ISOM, got rejected because it already existed, and said, "Screw it, I'm doing it anyway."
Well, we don't know for certain if that's the case, or at least I don't. But let's try to get through this because as I said, they do have an article of Eric July.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to the second article.
I think
we're not going to get to the end of this one
because it's like 15 minutes to 10. We've been going about an hour and 45 minutes now.
Next, here's
a Batgirl to refresh the screen. We'll just palette cleanser.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So next, he asserts that July and Rippaverse are affecting potential donations to his ministry. Quote, Good Shepherd is a Christian ministry. It is 100% a 501c3 nonprofit that is significantly sustained through donations. These donations depend massively on public trust and financial organizational integrity. The damage to our charity's reputation by Mr. July's use of our trademarked ISOM name is extremely real and significant, unquote. Furthermore, I think a lot of what we're about to read here is stuff that RJ has already pointed out too.
Yeah, sorry, I'm ahead of the game on this one.
Yeah, although RJ said good scenario, with them both being Christian, I think it's going to be hard to prove that donations that maybe Rippaverse got or Eric July got for the charity he was doing was because they thought it was the International School of Ministry.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point. It's not that they think that he got the money that should have gone to the ministry. They think that the controversy around how he got the money, which there's a huge one, whether or not there was true charity or not, will affect further contributions that people would have made to the ministry.
Yeah,
if they see a headline
that's a hard
that says,
thing to prove.
Yeah, well, but that's why that's why the trademark gets enforced so that you don't have to worry about proving it.
Yeah.
Furthermore, he posits that July's beliefs are damaging Good Shepherd. Quote, Mr. July is not shy about his personally held beliefs and has a significant audience, especially on YouTube. While he is certainly entitled to his own beliefs, we do not want his beliefs, statements, and actions to be wrongly attributed to Good Shepherd because of Mr. July's use of our registered trademark, ISOM, unquote. Quote, specifically, and among other things, Good Shepherd is concerned about Mr. July's prolific use of unacceptable swear words. And even I have an issue. Well, you guys know how I feel about swearing. I feel that it's just, even I have somewhat, I think it does kind of show a lack of intelligence or at least a little bit of laziness, if anything. But anyways, being associated with that usage is deeply troubling to us, and even more disturbing is when Mr. July uses the name of Jesus Christ in vain. This is, to us, completely unacceptable for someone claiming to represent the Christian faith, unquote. He added.
Does he claim to represent the Christian faith? He might have said he's supposed to be a Christian, but beyond that, there's lots of people out there that claim to be a Christian.
Yeah, we know a few of them, don't we, Rick? We know a few of them, don't we?
So I'm not sure whether he's claiming to represent the Christian faith. I'm not sure whether he's ever said that. I claim more to do that than he does, as far as I know.
Yeah. So anyways, quote, we have gathered evidence of these unacceptable verbal usages, and our board of directors does not want our ISOM brand to be confused with or associated with Mr. July or his ISOM brand. Now, RJ, I want you to answer something for me because JR made a particular point earlier. So supposedly, the word ISOM, right, the name ISOM, supposedly, I guess, is a common name in Africa.
Yes.
So now, how would that play into all this then? Because I mean, now you're
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Have you ever eaten at a place called McDonald's?
Yeah, and
that's a very common name, especially in Scotland, and it's trademarked.
Okay, fair enough.
Wendy's.
Yeah. Glaffelin then concluded, quote, for these reasons and many more, we are serving our lawsuit despite our efforts. Mr. July and his company refuse to acknowledge that they have in any way infringed on our ISOM trademark rights. Now, from a logical standpoint, I would have to agree with Mr. July here, because if anything, okay, RJ, I know you pointed out that because of the increasing publicity, it's brought more confusion. But I think it's brought more notoriety to both companies because prior to this, I never and we talked. Everybody here has talked about this. I don't know, but prior to this, none of us had ever heard of the International School Ministry. We obviously know it now. So,
yeah, but it doesn't matter. They had the rights to use the trademark on printed material. They had the right to use the trademark on clothing. It didn't matter if he sold $1 million worth of it or if he sold $20 worth of it. He was not allowed to do it. If you create a book and you only sell 50 copies of it and you call it Mickey Mouse, good luck.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'm just trying. Okay. This infringement matter is central to everything else. Unfortunately, it appears the legal system is needed to resolve this core issue. Only after trademark infringement has been confirmed can any further negotiation be meaningful. Which I guess is another point you had made, RJ, that the real negotiations can't really start till afterwards. Even though they had actually apparently tried to reach out, but there's been, I guess,
They
some
had to
speculation
file.
that, huh?
They had to file so that they could start negotiations. They tried to negotiate, and Ripa says they didn't talk at all. And they say that we reached out and, weren't, didn't come out satisfactorily. Maybe that wasn't satisfactory because Ripa wouldn't talk to them. But then again, in the same video where he says he never talked to him, he talks about how he negotiated with them. I'm like, well, did you talk to them or not? It's hard to tell sometimes.
What do you
It
make of?
depends on what he means by we didn't talk to him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but what do you make of Glafillin
Maybe
and
his
Good
lawyers
Shepherd
talked. He
Ministries
didn't.
suing Eric July? Now I have to admit, this conversation that we've had has kind of opened my eyes a little bit more, and maybe has, because initially I just simply thought maybe this preacher is one of those like guys like we talked about with Joel Olstein earlier, who maybe this guy saw that Eric July made all this money, and maybe he was getting a little avarice or greedy, because apparently he claimed they tried to settle, and
Yeah, well, settlement doesn't necessarily mean money.
yeah. But I thought maybe this guy was just trying to scam or whatever. But now that RJ's explained it a little bit more, we've gone to maybe my view on it's a little bit different now. But I know we're almost at the 2 hours. But I really think we should at least try to, and I'll try to go through it like quickly. But I think
I guess we need to try and not comment so much.
Well, we can comment more like at the end, just simply because we obviously, to understand, I think we also need to hear how Eric responded to this, and and if there is anything we can call him out on, we'll call him out on it. Obviously, I'm trying to find. Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's the article right here. All right, and I'll read through it quickly, and then if you guys have anything really stands out, feel free to just comment, say, hey, or get my attention on that. So we'll just kind of go through this as quickly as possible here. So Eric July responds to Good Shepherd Ministries suing him and Rippaverse over ISOM trademark, accuses the organization of attempting to shake him down, which was my viewpoint prior to our discussion there. So, article by John F. Trent published on the 13th, which was Friday. Okay, so Eric July issued a response to Baron Gilfillan and Good Shepherd Ministries after Gilfillan declared he would proceed with suing July and his comic book company, Rippaverse, over a trademark dispute concerning July's ISOM character. In his response, July accused Gilfillan and Good Shepherd Ministries of attempting to shake him down.
If they're trying to shake him down, that means they asked for money. If they asked for money, that means they talked. He says they didn't talk.
Well, even you said that he said they didn't, and then he turned around and said they did, or indicated
You
that
get competing stories out of Eric July.
Maybe that's just in the first letter or whatever that they sent him or whatever that he could mean. Anyways, on with the show.
Yeah. Gilfillan outlined in a lengthy post to X that he and Good Shepherd Ministries would proceed with their lawsuit, claiming that July was infringing on their ISOM trademark and was damaging their business. Now, we went through all this already, so I'll just skip through all that because we already went through all that, obviously. Let's see. In response to his statement from Gilfillan, July issued his own statement on his YouTube channel describing the lawsuit as baseless. July went on to state, quote, "We were not in any communication with Good Shepherd or the International School of Ministry prior to the filing of the lawsuit. There were no obvious opportunities presented to engage in a good faith conversation before the lawsuit was filed about what's being alleged. We were not made aware that the International School of Ministry had any issues with with the Rippaverse until the lawsuit was filed. Not only did it make this ordeal public, but it was also news to us.
Yeah. Well,
So
see,
what he,
now he's using the and maybe unintentionally, maybe he's just mistaking it himself because it's legal stuff and it's very confusing to people who aren't legal people. But the lawsuit was filed. That doesn't mean it was served. That means it was just sitting in a file drawer somewhere and existed. That's what opened up the door to allow negotiations. They would have been very stupid to call him up and say, hey, we need to settle something when there is no lawsuit filed. There's nothing to settle if there's no suit filed. Now, after that conversation, if they say, no, we don't want to talk to you, we're screwing this up. You're screwing us up. We don't want to do anything. Then the ministry can say, okay, we're going to take our lawsuit that's filed, put it in a nice little envelope, and serve it to you. Now it's active. Now it's going to the courts.
So basically, what you're saying is they filed it, and then they did try to settle it with him.
You have to file it so that you have something to settle. And if the settlement doesn't work, then you serve the suit. And that's what brings it.
But can't you try and talk to somebody before even filing, RJ?
You can, and then you can legally damage yourself. You have to have the suit filed first. The lawyers have to be button and suspenders on the whole thing.
I get the logic of that statement because if they don't file the lawsuit first, it actually would open them up to what Eric is accusing them of trying to shake him down. If they didn't have the lawsuit filed, it could open them up for that. Am I right in that assumption? RJ?
Yeah, they could make any kind of mistake if they didn't have the lawsuit filed and totally ruin any chances they would have of suing.
Even if they went with lawyers talking?
They wouldn't go with lawyers talking until something was filed. There would be paperwork done up before a lawyer would say hello.
Yeah. All right. Again, very educational here, huh, guys? Well, RJ, you already know a lot of this stuff, so I'm glad you're here.
Well, it's I'm
involved in. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm definitely taking note of it.
Yeah,
I've been involved in trademark stories for years and years and years. So yeah, I'm aware of the things that go on. A friend of mine who's an independent comic book publisher, his book is still going on in novel form, but he had a comic book at the time called Wild Stars. Now, there was absolutely no confusion at all in my mind of the story that, this team of spacefaring astronauts who were going throughout time could be at all confused with a superhero from Image. And yet, he saw confusion in the marketplace. He brought it to court, and Image no longer produces Wildstar because he had the mark.
Mm-hmm. So I was just seeing what was in this private chat there. That's why I was. All right. So, anyways, trying to get through this as quickly as we can. He then added, quote, so if anybody alleges that Good Shepherd just wanted to get clarification, we find that filing a lawsuit is an interesting way to go about it. Despite all of this, we still had no problems entering into a good faith discussion with the International School of Ministry. Now here's an interesting question. Now, granted, it may not bear much from a legal standpoint, but before all this happened, was Eric even aware that there was such a thing called International School of Ministry?
I doubt it because he would have found out the minute he tried to file a trademark.
Yeah. So, granted, not that I get again what you've told me, RJ. Not that would have,
Again, it's two things.
The saying of ignorance of the law is no excuse. Right?
Exactly, and it's two possibilities. Either he didn't file a trademark, so nothing came back, so he didn't know about it, or he did file it, got the rejection back, was completely aware of it, and said, "I don't care."
Well, at least based on what we're seeing from what he's saying, it sounds like he just didn't know. He may have just been a little I don't know, lazy for lack of a better term in terms of checking on the trademark. You know, but let's continue here. So
It's hard to tell because he wasn't so lazy that he didn't trademark Rippaverse. So
yeah, quote, if the main issue was centered around assuring there was distinction between the Rippaverse and the International School of Ministry, we were open to negotiations, unquote. July asserted, quote, we disagree that anyone would truly confuse a ministry and a comic book company or a comic book character, but we were certainly open to hearing and addressing the real concerns, unquote. Which again was my point from the get-go. How would you realistically confuse a comic book character with a school of ministry?
right. But because they both publish.
Yeah,
the ministry is a publisher. The comic book company is a publisher. They both produce the same item in the marketplace, which is a book.
Quote, we had some settlement discussions, unquote, July relayed. Quote,
now we did talk to them. Jesus.
Yeah. Quote,
to clarify what he means at certain point.
Sounds like he's being wishy-washy.
Sounds like he's making it up as he goes along.
I hate to have to say this because now that I'm a little more aware of what's going on, it almost sounds like he may be getting caught in a lie and being exposed for it.
Yeah. Thanks. It's like every other paragraph in which says, "Oh, there's a little bit more. My ass is not covered. I should do something about that."
Was that you, RJ, who said that? That you think?
Yeah. It's like every other paragraph, he looks back and says, "Oh, look, there's another hole in my pants. I can see some of my ass. I better cover that."
He should just say, "Look, I'm going to be working this out. Obviously, they had it before I did. I can easily make a little change to the title and call it Eric July's Isom or whatever,
or Rippa versus Isom or what have you."
The first thing you should say is, "Oops."
Yeah, or fried chicken dude. I don't know.
Straight up.
July relayed, quote, and we thought that we were on track to finding a mutually beneficial solution. But we were blindsided when the International School of Ministry, a nonprofit, demanded profit from our company to be a part of the negotiation.
That's
and
what
they
happens.
wanted. Go ahead, RJ.
That's what happens. If you make money on someone else's name, the people whose name you used are going to want that money.
Mm-hmm. And they wanted this to be perpetual. Again, this is shocking. The demand for our profits doesn't seem to have much to do with the alleged concerns over confusion.
Yeah, that's because if you're going to license the name, then you're going to pay for as long as you're licensing it. And if you're just going to continue infringing it, then you're going to pay for as long as you're infringing it. You're not going to just pay a fine and then keep producing Isom the comic book. You'll have to pay a fine or pay money every single time.
Now, when you say every single time, does that mean like every single issue that he produces?
Yeah.
Issue 1, yes. Issue 2, yes. Issue 3, yes. Issue 4, yes. If he keeps doing it, the money pile keeps piling up. Another hat, yes. Another T-shirt, yes.
So for everything he uses the Isom name, he'll have to pay them for it.
Yes, and that would include variant copies.
So sounds, I don't know. It sounds like he should just go ahead and change the name then to just Ripper versus.
Should.
Isom.
Now, if he paints Isom on the van, he doesn't have to use that.
But you know, now that I'm seeing some of this too, now I have to say that maybe Eric July is suffering from one of the 7 deadly sins.
Oh yeah, pride. I could definitely see him for greed for sure.
What if?
Not just greed, but pride.
Yeah, that too.
This sounds like, you know, he's just finding it because he doesn't want. It sounds like he doesn't want to admit that he may have made a mistake here. He doesn't want to acknowledge that he may be a fool here in this case.
We will win.
Yeah. Quote, Oh, wait, actually, how much of that did I? Okay. So, quote, but even worse, the International School of Ministry is demanding limits on our ability to create, and that's all we wanted to do as a company. Build characters and create comic books. We want to give our customers a good time, and we want them to have fun. In the words of Neil Gaiman, quote, we strive to make good art, unquote. He said. Now, RJ, I know you and I actually even talked about this. What was it? Like last week, right? When we were talking about, Fawcett's Captain Marvel, right?
Right.
If you kind of educated me a little bit there that the book had to be called, because I had thought that they had to call the hero because, but they could still call the character Captain Marvel. They just they had to change the name of the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why even when you see him on T-shirts, it always said Shazam. The branding had to be Shazam. The branding could not be Captain Marvel, even though we all
Yeah.
know that's who he is.
Yeah.
This is interesting though, because
the thing is, yeah. So
Well, hold on.
in the comics, he
let
could
Rick
be
finish.
called Captain Marvel, but the book couldn't be called Captain Marvel.
Same
And-
thing holds true today with the Edgar Rice Burroughs Foundation. You can write a book featuring Tarzan because Tarzan is public domain. You cannot title the book Tarzan because the book is the property being sold, and that would be the branding. They own the trademark Tarzan. So, while you can get around copyright by writing a Tarzan story, you cannot call that story Tarzan and anything. You can call it Jungle Adventures, perfectly fine.
RJ, you were about to say something, but Rick was already talking.
Yeah, and I wanted to give him a chance to finish there. This is the statement he's making here about the demanding limits on their ability to create. This means that they have negotiated, and they very likely talked about licensing out the name for a fee. That would be the perpetual payment. You want to use our name, that's fine. By the way, if you're going to use our name, we're going to have input on the stories because you're not going to use our name and have your character curse or have blood sacrifices or engage
Whatever
in
else.
activity that would be against what the ISOM ministry would promote.
Especially as the hero.
Especially
Maybe
as
the
the hero.
villain. Maybe
Yeah,
the villains could do.
I kind of think that Eric at this point is just bite the bullet and just change the name of the book, change the name of the
He
series.
should. It's the
like
easiest thing in the
it
world
probably
to do.
save him a lot of stress and headache, in the
But
end.
it would be admitting he was wrong, and that's what he can't do.
Because
doesn't seem
he's
to
so
wanna do.
big and all that, right?
Heck, I'm in the process of adding my name to the title. It'd be Timothy Olsen's Melvin, starting
Well,
with issue 4.
I think you're more better to go with your comic company instead of your name.
Well, Jim Lee did it with Wildcats. It was Jim Lee's Wildcats.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they
but
did it with Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone.
yeah, but Jim Lee was that was Image, right? Which had a bunch
Yes.
of different owners.
And he probably
That's
did it
why-
because DC Comics had a character called Wildcat.
Yes.
Okay, so anyways,
Boom.
let's continue the article here. July would then go on to reveal that his character of Isom, and here they're spelling it with all. Now I've seen both. I've seen both names use all caps, and I've seen now they're referring to Isom here with the capital I and small letters. I mean, would that be enough of a change or no?
Nope.
All right.
Case doesn't matter.
Yeah. Of Isom, aka Avery Silman, is named after a number of his family members. Specifically, he details that the name Isom is, quote, the first name of the second generation patriarch of my family, Isom Knox. He was born in 1851 in Arkansas, your neck of the woods, RJ.
Yep.
He's
That was not me in that picture.
What was that?
That was not me in that picture either. If you're not familiar with the picture that went out, somebody on the trolling side against Eric did a completely reprehensible thing and found the tombstone and did the whole Barry Allen Green Arrow tombstone meme thing with it, with stuff on the tombstone. So yeah, that was not cool.
Barry Allen. So in other words, somebody doctored a photo to make it look like your name on a tombstone.
Oh, they found the real tombstone and they took pictures of themselves with it.
Oh,
For Eric July's great grandfather.
Yes, they found Isom Knox's tombstone and said, "Hey, Eric, look where I am!" Ha ha. Now they had a mask on.
Yeah, he's my great grandfather. All right, so let's see. Next, July detailed that the surname Silman is his great grandmother's maiden name. Her name being Mary Jane Silman. As for Avery, July revealed. Okay, did one of you want to have something you want to say, or
No, but I need to drop. Sorry, I got to bust out so early here, but I'm 10 minutes late for something else. But good conversation here. You guys are keep kicking it.
oh,
Okay, later.
I wish you could stay till we finish this article at least, because your input I think is really helpful here.
Yeah, well, he said he's 10 minutes late. So.
Yeah, there's nothing new I would have to add on this, but yeah, definitely finish it out. He gives away too much information here about his family, which is how people started tracking him down, and that's just going to lead to trolling, which is what they've done now. But the fact that it's basically the fact that it's based on somebody's name has absolutely no bearing on the fact that he's using it as a brand. So he can't just say, "Hey, it's my grandfather's name." The ministry says we don't care. we own the mark, and you can't use it. So with that, keep talking. I'll see you guys later.
Well, thank you for thank you for joining us, RJ. Your input was well appreciated. Anyways, we'll finish out this article and then we'll start. I know we went beyond 2 hours tonight, but this particular story I felt was really necessary to go through. I think the conversation we've had has shown to be a pretty good one.
For sure.
Very informative and educational here. Anyways, let's continue on here. Let's see. As for Avery, July revealed a quote. It's based on my great grandfather Avery Knox, who was born in 1897 and is Isom's grandson. He then detailed, quote, so this character's first, last, and hero name are all based on real people that are my family members. The name Isom predates Good Shepherd in both my family and many other instances. But as RJ just pointed out, even in that, it still
means nothing. They still
had the trademark before Eric did.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see how the court case goes.
Yeah. July went on to reveal that he informed Gilfillan, again typo, of this. Quote, the sad part of this situation is that Dr. Gilfillan, Good Shepherd's founder, personally asked me to explain this when I met with me. Okay. Again,
when he met with me, I think it's supposed to be.
Yeah. When again, either a typo or some kind of weird. And I did. This was before they demanded a perpetual profit off of our work, a profit off of my effort to honor my family, unquote. He added, quote, they were unwilling to withdraw any monetary payment, and we do not take those frivolous threats lightly. Okay, so now either Eric truly believes what he's saying, or he's caught in a lie and trying to cover his, you know what.
You know what? I honestly think he believes what he's saying.
Yeah.
He might be wrong, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a whole good point of conversations like this, isn't it? Moving on to the actual claim about the trademark dispute. July said, quote, now a trademark is connected to specific goods sold under the mark. Good Shepherd failed to accurately compare the relevant goods the goods identified in their registration fall into distinct classes. Class 9 covers audio material. Class 16 covers print material. In their original letter to me, Class 9 is what Good Shepherd. So he's saying audio material.
Well,
a
and
lot-
he said print.
Yeah. Well, okay. Class 9 is audio material. Class 16. What I think Eric is saying here, when he first got the letter, supposedly, right? It was the Class 9 that they were using, or the audio material. So, it's what Good Shepherd rely on. But that's limited to audio material, not comic book characters. So there's some misidentification of the covered goods in the lawsuit as it was filed. That's obviously a problem. Now, again, I kind of wish RJ had stuck around because it would have been nice to hear his take on that.
Yeah.
Quote, but they also are trying to expand the scope of the goods they claim are under this mark by claiming they are printing instructional, educational, and teaching materials all in the field of religion, which is a direct text from their registration, somehow could be confused with comic books. He continued. But the worst part is that the ministry's claimed goods involve religious content, not comic book characters, unquote, he said. Conveniently for them, the arguments broaden the scope of the goods that they claimed with the trademark office. July then detailed, quote, we do not sell audio or electronic books. We do not sell print material centered around religious instructional content. Our industry is dominated by physical copies, and that's all we currently sell. But Good Shepherd is claiming that we sell many of the same types of goods, and that's nonsense, unquote. Well, they're relying on the fact that our character has a cross on his belt, unquote. He stated, quote, Good Shepherd does not own the rights to the use of a cross symbol.
This is true.
Yeah. On top of that, claiming that there is overlap in the large market is flat out wrong. Good Shepherd identifies itself as the largest multi-denominational video-based Bible school in the world, targeting Christians who seek to obtain training to bring forth the word. This was stated by televangelist Marilyn Hickey, and it's on their website.
I couldn't help but think Jesus' lawyer is filing Monday.
What was that?
I said I couldn't help but think Jesus' lawyer is filing Monday.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
what
not
a
so
crock.
sure about the largest non-denominational school. That seems a bit iffy to me when I've never heard of them, or I don't think I've ever heard of them before all this.
Quote, we are a comic book company. We set out to entertain first and foremost, unquote, July said. The Rippaverse is not a ministry, nor does anything that we do have a faith-based instructional or training aspects. Maybe there will be some overlap if our business was like the International School of Ministry with Pastor Chris and Christ Embassy. Or if we were the Illinois School of Ministry, or the Indiana School of Ministry, or the Islamic Society of the Midwest. They all are specifically involved in faith and ministry. To our knowledge, there aren't any active trademark disputes between them and Good Shepherd. Now, from a logical standpoint, Eric's arguments do seem legit, but I guess from a legal standpoint, it doesn't, according to RJ, it doesn't matter.
He sounds
Yeah.
wishy-washy in the story.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Hey, JR says a bingo is school associate with a televangelist. That might. That's probably true. But or the televangelist just could have been talking about them. But I'm not hip on all televangelists, but some are all right. Not all, obviously. The ones that are trying to scam people out of money, no. But there's some out there that just
Quote, the Riververse is not a religious organization, he pointed out. Quote, the individual religious beliefs of our employees and contractors are completely irrelevant to what we do. We have a public code of ethics, and it says nothing about religion. Yeah, but I think as RJ pointed out, and also as Dr. Gillifson had pointed out, somebody might think Eric
confuse the two.
represents them, and any bad publicity he gets would negatively reflect on them. I think that's where they were going with that. But
Yeah.
quote, but we are a for-profit business and therefore have profit to plunder, and that is what Good Shepherd has demanded, unquote, July accused. Later in the video, July explained how he and Ripaverse are still willing to come to, quote, reasonable terms, unquote. He said, quote, we aren't impeding on their rights, and these types of agreements to coexist peacefully are made by trademark attorneys every single day. Many times these are completed amicably without any money changing hands. This should not be difficult, unquote. Quote, at some point, Good Shepherd claimed that a forever license payment is required to protect their right, unquote, July said. Quote, that is simply not true. A perpetual license would tie the Ripaverse and Good Shepherd together forever. I thought that was specifically what Good Shepherd hoped to avoid, unquote.
Yeah.
Again, I wish RJ had stuck around.
Yeah.
Again, I would really love to hear his take on all this.
Yeah. But it's interesting thoughts, He's making, I think, some good points. I don't know the legalese behind it,
July then summarized, quote, so let's be clear here. We went into negotiations and there was no indication they wanted profit off of our business. This was a subversive strategy, and it wasn't until after the initial negotiations did they want perpetual payment, unquote. Quote, we easily could have come up with an agreement where both parties coexist with no constant payment. The type of agreement is largely the norm, unquote.
Yeah. Something that comes to mind when about Canuck, I heard this. Captain Canuck, when he filed for copyright or trademark, I forget what it was. Richard Comley, the guy that owns it.
Mm-hmm.
The Vancouver Canucks had come into business, and they came in. They had contacted him, and they came to an agreement where just you'd never see Captain Canuck on ice, like in skates. So that's sort of what he's talking about,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quote, number 2, this whole thing was initiated due to trolling, unquote, July said. Quote, had they done their diligence, they would know they were relying on false reports to initiate this very but as RJ pointed out, maybe if Eric had done his diligence, he wouldn't be in this mess either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
It is kind of true though, because I mean they've been going at him pretty hard, and it's like it's more than just giving him a hard time. I think they literally do tend on ruining his business.
Well, I think what they did here, they may have seen a prime opportunity and basically brought it to the International Schools of Ministry for the sole purpose of causing the chaos that's leading to this lawsuit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if Eric was smart, and you'd hope he is, he would have just simply made a simple change, made whatever deal he could with them, and
But,
then
but then, as RJ put it, that would just simply require him to admit that he was wrong and that and apparently Eric's just got too much of a big head, and he's got it. And unfortunately, I have to say this: sounds like he's got such a big head and stuck so far up his what.
You mean his
He's
ass?
got kind of a double layer of skin for a neck, right?
I'm sure you can say the word ass. I'm sure it's not the worst thing that anyone's ever heard or said.
Well, if I was referring to a donkey, yeah, I probably could say ass or asinine, but let's see.
Number 3.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I didn't know if we had got through that whole paragraph. Number 3, quote. Number 3. Just as I explained to you all in this statement, we gave Good Shepherd the origin of the name Isom. He went on. They specifically asked for it and expressed saying this could assist in the settlement process. That doesn't seem to be the case. Well, I mean, if that's what he's claiming, I mean, all he's got to do is what change it slightly to like River versus Isom or July's Isom. That would solve the problem right there.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be the case. Well, now they want to profit off the name of great. I think they forgot to put a word in there, didn't they? Of my great grandfather. Quote number 4. Good Shepherd was not open to compromise. They lauded greater demands as negotiations went on. It seems to create more conflict rather than resolve it. He included, well, I mean, add Ripperverse or Eric July to the name. Problem solved. What do you make of July's? Well, what do
A
you
little
guys think
iffy.
of Eric's response?
Interesting, a little, I think, as Tim said, wishy-washy. Unfortunately, we're not getting all the details from either side. Usually they say you listen to both sides, and usually the truth resides somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the case here.
Tim, what do you have to say on the matter?
I already said what I needed to say. He sounds wishy-washy.
Yeah. To me, there are some parts here where it sounds like he realizes he's been caught in a lie. He's trying to cover his rear end. It does seem kind of that way. I think RJ agreed with me on that one, but either he truly believes what he's saying and truly believes he's going to win this case. RJ might say he's being delusional in that, or he's lying through his teeth. So I guess we'll have to wait to find out. Anyways, we've gone well beyond the 2 hour mark. We're at the two and a half hour mark. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to wrap things up. We're going to go quickly through this day in each history, and then actually, before I do that, I think we'll do that. I'll let you guys have a chance to do any outros you want to do real quick before we sign off here. But you just look at all this. All right. So with that, let's go. Today is Sunday, October 15th, 2023. So let's take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history. So first off, we're going to go back to yesterday, October 14th, Saturday. So on yesterday's date, 10 years ago, the WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Scottsdale Center in St. Louis, Missouri. The main event for that show saw Cody Rhodes and Goldust team up to defeat the Shield members of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in a no disqualification match to win the WWE Tag Team Championship. Alberto Del Rio defeated Daniel Bryan by a countout. In a Beat the Clock challenge, CM Punk defeated Curtis Axel. The Real Americans of Antonio Cesaro and Jack Swagger defeated Tons of Punk, Brodus Clay, and Tensai. In another Beat the Clock match early in the evening, Ryback defeated R-Truth. And the night opened up with Randy Orton defeating The Miz. So that all happened 10 years ago. WWE holding its Monday Night Raw event from the Scottsdale Center in St. Louis, Missouri. And also on yesterday's date, in 5 years ago, PBS Kids, The Cat in the Hat Knows a Lot About That, would get canceled on this date in 2018. So after 3 seasons, all spread out over an 8-year period, PBS Kids, The Cat in the Hat Knows a Lot About That, was canceled.
3 seasons spread over 8 years. Wow, that sounds successful.
Well, this is also PBS, though, Public Broadcasting System.
Yeah, but just, like 3 seasons, 8 years. That's a little spread out.
Yeah. All right, so now, moving on to today's date, of course. On today's date, back 20 years ago today, the 15th and final issue of Agent X from Marvel went on sale on this date in 2003, 20 years ago today. The story was A Means to an End, written by Gail Simone, penciled by Alvin Lee, and lettered by Corey Pettit. So 20 years ago today, the 15th and final issue of Agent X went on sale from Marvel. And 5 years ago today, which the first part of season 3 of Attack on Titan concluded its run on Japanese television on this date 5 years ago today. So part 1 of season 3 of Attack on Titan concluded its original Japanese run on Japanese TV on this date 5 years ago today, 2018. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Now, before we leave, of course, I want to give my panel a chance to plug anything. We'll go kind of in counterclockwise order. So we'll start with Tim. If you want to, of course, tell us about any projects you're doing, share any links, go for it, Tim, and then, of course, Rick, and then I'll wrap things up.
All right. Melvin number 3, or now eventually now in the future be known as Timothy Olson's Melvin. It wraps up in 10 days. And currently the Azarka Ashcan is being worked on.
Okay, did you want to share any links or anything like that, or
just look it up on Fun My Comic?
all right?
I'm not actually on the YouTube page.
Okay.
Just one tab, too many to be open.
All right.
Tim Scott Benedict asks, "What's your favorite 2001 Pokemon character?"
Oh, easy. None of them.
I wouldn't know because I don't follow Pokemon.
I just think it sounds like a horrible pickup line at a bar. Excuse me, miss, would you like to see my Pokemon? Because roughly it's translated to Pocket Monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
that
just
is
saying.
the general.
I got a Pocket Monster for you. No.
And that's how Rick got pepper sprayed. The end.
So I am Rick Piper, Cross Comics. You can find me here on YouTube, Twitter, under the Cross Comics brand name. So I'm not going to put any links in tonight, but you can just look for me here on YouTube or whatever.
All right.
So thanks.
All right. I'm grabbing the Melvin 3 here. So here's Tim's link if you guys want to check out his book. So that's maybe I should have probably put at least, and I'll repaste it just.
Chem says the Poke Couple is the worst channel on YouTube. I'll take your word for that because I've never seen it.
So again, that almost sounds like a porn. The poke couple. They constantly are poking each other.
All right. So all right. So and you already did your thing, Rick. Your outro.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. We'll be back here tomorrow with more niche news. I might consider seeing if RJ wants to come back tomorrow. Maybe we'll go over that article because there's some points that, but then I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if I should or not because RJ's liable to just tell me that
yeah, there's not too much that I think he's going to say different. So
yeah. But anyway, we'll be back with some form of niche news tomorrow. Whether or not we just go on with other articles or that, I'll probably decide by tomorrow. Of course, Rick will be back here this Friday for our weekly look back at comics history. This week, of course, this Friday we'll be looking at comics that went on sale in December of 1939 from Fox Feature Publications. Of course, features such as Blue Beetle, Green Mask, Samson, The Flame, among others you're looking at. Tim will be back with me on the following week, 27th, in which we'll be looking at Hillman comics. So looking forward to that, guys. With that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Good discussion tonight. Good, very informative informative educational discussion. I'm glad RJ was able to join us for a bit. With that, I thank you all, and I shall bid you all good night. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.